Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Can I get a roll call
Principal,
here?
Vice Chair Thomas. Here. Commissioner Garcia.
Here.
Commissioner Guyana. Commissioner Mendoza. Here.
Thank you. Can we rise for the pledge of allegiance? Commissioner Garcia, can you lead us?
Ready, begin. United States. Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And then before I move on, if anyone's watching on social media, Facebook, and want to make a public comment, you guys can join us via Zoom. The meeting ID is 876-8074-3187. I'm going to move on to D. Public comments from the audience regarding items not on the agenda. Do we have any emails or anyone on Zoom?
Second public comments.
Okay, E, consent agenda. Adoption of the June 4th, 2024 Planning Commission minutes. It's on page 3.
Make a motion to approve.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Everyone in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to F, public hearing. The first one is consideration of a resolution recommending that the city council adopt the final initial study mitigated negative declaration for the Greenfield wastewater treatment plant improvement project APN 109-031-005. Can I get a staff report?
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the commission. My name is Tiffany Nisich, and I'm with M&S Engineers, and I'm serving as the project manager for this project. So I'll give you a brief presentation tonight. The item before you is to recommend approval to City Council for the initial study mitigated negative declaration for the wastewater treatment plant improvement project. So to start the discussion, just a quick slide about what is this project. It's a complete rebuilding of the existing wastewater treatment plant, which was necessitated because of the long time. The plant was built in the 50s. It's gone through some remodels, but it's no longer meets the required requirements of the our waste discharge permit from the Regional Water Quality Control Board. So we're required to meet those. We did a series of studies over the last few years and landed on this particular process for the best and cheapest way to meet all those requirements. So that's what we're trying to do here. So as we talked about in the report, we had a design firm, we did a preliminary design report, which then becomes the basis for the development document that you have before you tonight. It says in the report, but it's a little bit unusual. This is a secret plus project. If you're not familiar with that, that simply means that we have to meet the federal environmental requirements as well as the California requirements, and there's a whole series of that, some of that is doing it in the report. It just simply means we have to do a little more in terms of our noticing, our requirements, and that's the documents you have. And the final report is actually two pieces of paper. You won't see them here, but here's what they look like if you print them out. This is the initial study, the draft. This is the final. Together, these are the report that you're asking me to approve tonight. The other document which is attached to the report is the monitoring mitigation plan. That's part of the response to comments, which you will see in there. And we'll go over that briefly. The report, the plant that we're building and proposing to build is a completely redoing and the demolition of the oil plant. The major trick thing about it is we'll have to keep the oil plant working while we build the oil plant. So that'll be a more difficult process and takes a longer, but that's the nature of what we're doing here. I've given you a little summary of all the things that you can do if you want, all the various pieces that are in this process, and they're on this scale. I'm very aware of that, but it's everything that's necessary to produce the type of quality that we want. This is a brief little map, and this shows you the plan. It's at the existing treatment plant, which I'm sure you're familiar with at the end of Walnut Avenue. What this kind of shows you is where all those little pieces where I mentioned are. The piece in the middle, the pink piece is the existing plant. We're going to have to build the existing plant around it, and when we're done, we'll demolish the existing plant, which hopefully then will become area for future expansion if we need it. So the short version of the plan is it's built, it's designed to meet the city's general plan through the year 2040. It's going to meet all the requirements, plus it's going to have some recycled water supply, which we'll be able to use to hopefully irrigate the adjacent residential, the adjacent agricultural uses. And the project does include distribution system for those adjacent parcels. The council's already adopted a resolution and a contract that approves the biomembrane reactor, which is the significant part of the treatment. The short version is a biomembrane reactor is a combination of filtration and biosystem. The biology process is what nature uses to break these kinds of things down. We add some chemicals to it, make it a little faster like they are now. At this level, we'll also add some filtration. So we don't have to use just gravity for all the heavy stuff to settle out. We can use some filtration, which gets it out faster and it's a higher quality of the fluid. And that's what we're proposing to do here. So the intent is simply to meet our requirements, our permit. One of the things you probably should know that the state changed we had a permit for years. The state said, okay, we're doing away with that permit, we issue a new permit. And the city was issued which they call a time and schedule order, which means we're moving forward to meet the new requirements at a schedule that we've submitted. We're trying to stay on that schedule. So to answer the question, we are required to do this plan. It's not discretionary, so we're moving forward. What you have before you is the final initial study mitigative declaration, which goes through all the environmental analysis that's required. And I've listed some of that in the report. The draft report, we then noticed that as required by law, we received 3 comment letters, one from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Department of Toxic Substance Control, and the State Water Resources Control Board. I would say those letters and the comments were basically ministerial in the fact that I do think we addressed them in the initial document, but we responded to each one of those, and they're in the final documents, a whole chapter 2 that talks about the required changes that were made in the report, and those are in there. Having said that, unless you have any questions on the document itself, we're asking the Planning Commission to recommend to the City Council to approve the final initial study mitigated declaration and for the Greenfield Wastewater Treatment Plant Improvement Project. So we'll take any questions.
Thank you for that. I'm going to go ahead and open public hearing. Commissioner McGee. Oh. Well, there's no.
I just have a couple of questions. So you mentioned the contract, the $30.7 million contract with Close CNF. Is that for the entire project or?
Well, that's just treatment train, as we call it, which is the equipment that's gonna go in the middle of that process. It's, and the contract just approves it. It kind of was, the council wanted to do it. We could reduce risk by, we fixed the price of that equipment, which is a substantial part. The entire project's around 90+ million. This is $30 million of it. So we're able to fix the price and reduce some of the risk of future increases in the, whatever. In addition, there are many different types of treatment trains that could have gone together. And if you can imagine, you need a bunch of piping and stuff coming together. It'd be nice to know in the beginning where all those pipes go. So by picking the manufacturer of a particular train, we're able to work with them to get the final design to be designed around this equipment. So it minimizes our costs and increases the efficiency.
So did you just say this is a $90 million project?
Yes. That's our current estimate.
So the financial impact isn't part of our purview. We're just here to.
No, yeah, this is the last piece of the financial package. One of the reasons we're doing the joint CEQA and NEPA project is because we're using we hope to use grant funding, which requires that we those additional requirements. So that's why we're going forward. And this document is part of our financial submittal for the grant. So when this together with some other documents we'll have to do move forward, and there's a whole hearing process about funding.
Okay, perfect. And also you mentioned the comment letters. I didn't have them in my packet here. So you mentioned that you're going back and forth with them a little bit. Is that going to hold this up at all?
Yeah, well, that's done. We did do a little bit. The letters are running through. The one I think that had the most discussion was the one from the Fish and Wildlife. I know that, as you know, the trustees for the various endangered plants or various creatures of one kind or another. The report, the consultant had a biological consultant who we think looked at all those things and said, you know, is the kit fox likely to be found out here? And our consultant said not likely. But they wanted more additional detail on those kinds of things. And there were several that talked about the various snakes and toads and things. And they said, no, we've ever looked at those. We don't think they are likely to be found here for all the reasons they say in the report. We added that additional dialogue in there, and that's what it makes the final report. We think we've done that. And then, of course, in addition, there's some mitigation measures to go with that. One of the things you see in the mitigation that is pretty standard is we're required to have a consultant who's a biological consultant that's going to train the contractor and going to be on site to observe that, you know, if it's nesting season for birds, make sure there's no birds that are of interest that are there in the area. And if they are, they'll have to recommend how we deal with that. And by this will be also run for cultural as well. If we discover any cultural artifacts, which we didn't find any, we didn't think we'd find any, but we'll have a plan that says if we do find any, the mitigation monitoring plan talks about how we address those things.
I always enjoy reading these mitigation plans because I always learn something. And I certainly hope you do not run into the western bumblebee or the crotch bumblebee. That would be unfortunate.
We think it's not likely, but possible.
Vice Chair Felix?
How long is this project gonna take?
Current schedule right now has us, we think, constructing 27, 28. But I think the real issue is how soon can we go through the financing process. This will wrap it up. We'll have a submittal very shortly, next few months. How long it takes the state and the federal government to review that. I mean, again, $90 million, it's a lot of money. There's a lot of discussion that will take place. So the quickest, the sooner that's done, the sooner the project can start.
Anything? Okay. Commissioner Gallardo?
You mentioned that the current one is gonna be demolished, you said.
That's correct, yes.
Wouldn't it behoove the community to keep it and upgrade it, and that way you could have more capacity? I mean, we've been at 100% for the longest time, if I believe. And I mean, I've said for a long, long time that we're gonna outgrow our infrastructure, and we have. And this is a perfect example of that. So why wouldn't you just wanna kind of upgrade the current one as well as build a new one, which I'm all for. But in the interim, if it's gonna take you, what'd you say, 28, 29 before it's completed? In that timeframe, our city's gonna grow, I mean, we're growing in leaps and bounds right now. And if we're already at 100% over there, by the time all these houses come in, the new ones over there, the apartments over here, we're gonna be over 100% if we're not already are. So I mean, from my perspective, I think it would behoove the community to keep the old one and rebuild that one. And that way you'll have more capacity between the two.
I'll go ahead and take that one. Hi, Jamie Tugel, Public Works Director. I did want to mention that this is a presentation for adoption of the environmental document. And so we do want to keep on track with that. Anything in the design phase or questions like you have, Commissioner Gallardo, can be addressed in a different forum.
So you're telling me I shouldn't even be asking those questions, is that what you're saying?
They've already all been determined. The plant will be demolished after the
Well, I
construction.
realize that.
Yeah.
But what I'm asking is, why is it, they have to be,
Mhm.
destroyed, demolished? When you could,
Is it's
work with it and make it up to par.
It's an entirely different processing and we're actually putting in extra capacity in our new plant.
It is what it is.
Anything else? Commissioner Florida? Commissioner,
No,
thank you. Commissioner Mendoza?
No, thank
you. Okay. All right. I will go ahead and close public hearing. I'm gonna move on to planning commission discussion and decision.
I don't have anything further to add. So I don't will make a motion.
Yeah.
I move that the planning commission adopt resolution 2024-04, recommending that the city council adopt the final initial study mitigated negative declaration for the Greenfield wastewater treatment plant improvement project.
I second it.
I have a motion and a second. Everyone in favor? Aye. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move on to number 2, consideration of a resolution recommending to the city council adoption of a rental registry ordinance as an amendment to chapter 17 for the purpose of regulating the city's rental housing stock. Staff report. And Mr. Reagan will. Mr. Reagan, we won't be having public comment on this item, right? It's not on the agenda.
Public comment, we should, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, sorry.
Okay, good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission. This will be actually our 4th time discussing this ordinance. We had our first meeting on this was an introductory once I started hearing from my bosses that there was some significant interest in getting something like this accomplished. And then we had 2 public hearings with the Planning Commission to talk about basic tenets, what we think we wanted to see in the ordinance. As discussed, we've had 4 workshops in the community in both English and Spanish. So we've vetted the proposal quite significantly. in the last year to year and a half, actually. Um, a lot of that vetting in the early days before we approached the planning commission at all involved reviewing the ordinances that other jurisdictions, not only in California, but across the country have implemented. City of Michigan and then many other, cities in California have already enacted an ordinance like this. We reviewed over 30 in total, and some were inappropriate for our community, certainly like Santa Barbara, and some others really didn't apply. And interestingly enough, during that period, when we were reviewing possible ordinances or tenants' ideas that might go into an ordinance, jurisdictions in Monterey County were passing them. I believe Salinas was the first, and then I believe the city of Monterey also has an ordinance such as this. But the final ordinance that we put together is included in your staff report. Its basic tenets are relatively uncomplicated, really. The initial paragraph regarding the findings and purpose really strikes at the right rationale for its existence. It strikes at the health and safety and welfare of our housing stock. The idea is that hopefully an ordinance such as this nature could serve as a deterrent from nuisance properties. Nuisance properties being rental stock that is, I would say overcrowding is the most common issue that creates a nuisance with rental properties. Landlords are just have too many tenants in their houses. And not to get too dramatic about it, but in the course of the years, we have had such calls to code enforcement of people urinating in the lawns, and we investigate further, and it's the house is just packed with people living in it, and there probably weren't enough restroom facilities to service. We've had the most extreme instance where we discovered 34 residents living in a modest 1,500 square foot house. These are the type of properties that this ordinance is supposed to address. Very basic concepts, which is that landlords, when they rent out more than one unit, and this would exclude ADUs, does not include accessory dwelling units, but when a landlord rents 2 or more units out, they would be required to obtain from the city a business license. The city is going to view this as a commercial arrangement between the landlord and the tenant, and as such, the city has a compelling interest to be in the dwelling. Be sure that it isn't violation of any housing, sanitation, or other burning code that otherwise should be remedied before they are occupied. The idea is that an inspector is in these properties once a year. And also in the first years out of the inspection portion of the program, only those residences where there's some evidence of a violation of some of the aforementioned codes exist will be really proactively try and inspect. With the ordinance, there's also a self-certification program where landlords and landlords who will never have to worry about the intent of this ordinance are able to self-certify their properties out, and that would involve the property owner literally filling out, their own affidavit and submitting it to the city where they are in essence self-certifying that they're, in compliance with their housing codes. Okay. Our ordinance most closely resembles the ordinance that is currently in force in the city of Santa Cruz. And so we feel comfortable, that we will have the ability to reach out to the staff in Santa Cruz to consult with them and find out how is this working for your city and how are you implementing it, because the ordinance calls for property owners to register with the city within 60 days of its enactment. And I think that that's going to be a challenge, but we'll work on it diligently. And I would expect that we would have as a matter of routine, reporting to the planning commission based on this, because it not only serves the fundamental goals that I've already discussed. The goal is to minimize overcrowding and that residents can live in rental housing stock that is not in violence of housing or sanitation groups that we have to protect as residents. I want to draw your attention to one part in the ordinance where there was a discussion we had with the planning commission regarding the notice that will be provided to residents when an inspector inspects. And in the initial ordinance, we had 21 days. You'll notice in your staff report that it's still 21 days, but my memory is that the planning commission wanted something a little bit less than 21 days. That I think the planning commission wanted, the 21 days was too far advance notice. So I wanted to revisit that issue, and the staff's recommendation is, of course, that you recommend that the city council approve this ordinance. But if you could possibly recommend a number, whether it's 7 days or 10 days, the objective from staff's point of view is to obtain compliance instead of going after the sanction, even though there's no doubt that there are property owners where sanction should be the first stop. And those are really the property owners that we're trying to affect by this ordinance. Be that as it may, maybe a 10-day or a 15-day notice, whatever the planning commission would recommend. But I wanted to just draw it to your attention that the current ordinance is presented as 21 days in it. And that's what we'll send up to the city council unless the planning commission tonight directs otherwise. And I'll my remarks and invite any questions that you may have. I know that we've spent a lot of time on this ordinance, and so I think the city council is anxious to receive it, and we can get it started.
Thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and open public comment. On this item.
Hello, good evening. I'm Jessica Batista. The blight and appearance of our city has been a topic for as long as I've been civically engaged, and that's been since 2008. We voted in measures, we've hired law code enforcement, and efforts to maintain a pleasing aesthetic. Today, with our community being about 50% rentals, We face overcrowding, parking safety violations, and much needed infrastructure improvements. The rental industry, along with ADUs, is a business. That is going unchecked in our community, and in many cases, homeowners are forced to live in neighborhoods with health and safety issues. With health and safety issues all around them. In September of 2021, I addressed your commission with extreme concerns about a home in my neighborhood. Today, the same residence remains in an overcrowding and health and safety violation. It is extremely frustrating to see our code enforcement employees drive by and dismiss multiple violations. In the city's municipal code, chapter 17.02, purpose of zoning is, this title is adopted to protect and promote the public health, safety, comfort, convenience, prosperity, and general welfare of residents and businesses. It says residents. Doesn't say some residents, it says residents. More specifically, the purpose of this title is to provide standards. I don't see that we have a standard. We have a standard for certain areas of town, but not all. To conserve and protect. It doesn't say what area of town to conserve and protect. It says to conserve and protect all. You have the authority to regulate the use of buildings and homes for enjoyment of scenic beauty. And I believe my scenic beauty is being violated all around my neighborhood. I know that there is a housing crisis, but that doesn't mean that I have to suffer or my home value has to suffer for it. Or I have to look out my window and see people urinating. Or 12 to 15 cars. If you have 12 to 15 cars in a home, you know that that's a violation. So I've always been a big proponent of this, and I know that it's a task, and I know that it's difficult, and I know that change is hard. But I deserve to be a homeowner in my community and enjoy my neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Bautista. Do we have any more comments? Emails, Zoom? And if anyone's watching on Facebook, please join if you want to make any comments or Zoom is a way to get to us. Okay, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and move on to C, Planning Commission discussion and decision.
Thank you, Chair. So thank you once again, Mr. Mugen, for bringing this forward. And I'd also like to thank Ms. Bautista because I believe this is actually in response to your comment that you mentioned in 2021. I agree that this has become necessary for the city of Greenfield due to the ratio of owner occupied versus renter occupied standing at 50-50 at this point. I think that's a fair statement. And I think this ordinance, it's pretty strong. I see the enforcement component is backed by statute for people that don't comply. I do have a question on the housing element calls for the adoption of a landlord integrity permit program. Is that different from the registry?
No, Commissioner, it's exactly the same thing. That was some goofy wordsmithing with the draft housing element. Apparently it's remained in the housing element because we probably should take that out. These are the exact same products, what we're talking about.
Well, if that's on page 32 of my packet.
Okay.
And then just the paragraph above that has a typo. Sorry. It says public funds, FUNS. Might need a D there. So I'm actually and as far as your comment that we discussed the date for the inspections. Now, will those inspections be on a date certain or within that time frame of 21 days? Is the occupied, the person living there can have a date certain for the inspection, or are you saying within 21 days we'll be here?
It was intended to be a date certain. We would schedule the date that there would be an inspection and it would be expected that we would be allowed entrance and cooperation by the property owner.
Okay, well, I think 21 days is a bit long. I think 10 days is enough notice. That seems to be typical for certain things.
If that's acceptable to the commission, we can put 10 days in if there's no objection by the planning commission. Any others?
I'm actually okay with 21 days. I think we should give the residents time to prepare. I think the goal here is to fix the problem, not catch them. And so I think 21 days.
Well, if it's okay with the planning commission, since everybody has a different view on it, we'd like to make sure we'll call this out to the city council and tell them, look, we have 21 days, but there's difference of opinion on this, and kind of make sure that they talk about it.
Can I weigh in on that?
Sure, please.
I'm in complete agreement with Mr. Garcia. I feel like 21 days is way too long. I mean, you could have a dump, and in 21 days, it could look like a hospital. I mean, I'm serious. And I think people would take advantage of that. I think 10 days is more than sufficient. But again, that's this.
I have a question. So the 21 days is not what, so they're going to do an inspection, right? They find violations. They have 21 days to get that corrected. Is that right? Or is it 21 days from the day they registered to get the inspection done?
Okay. The 21 days is supposed to be, okay, there's some evidence that house A is in violation, say it's cars or anything. So we notify the property owner and we say, the city of Greenfield is requiring, pursuant to this ordinance, entry into your home to inspect. We will be here 21 days from now on X date. That's what is meant by that.
Okay. I think because what I understood from Commissioner Garcia was the landlord registers, and within those 21 days, at some point, whether day 10 or day 12, they're going to go inspect. Is that okay? So so it's violation. You have 21 days to get it corrected.
Yeah.
And we'll be back.
The city will be there in 21 days to inspect.
It's a 21-day notice
Correct.
to enter.
To notice to enter the premises. Correct.
So is there tenant rights that we know about or we don't know about things like that?
No, not that we have. And,
So we can refuse your entry, is that correct?
oh, well, yes, actually, they could. They could. I mean, that's human. I mean,
I'm going on premise here. Let's say that there's multiple violations. So you have multiple calls from XYZ. And I mean, you look at the place and you can see that it's in disarray.
correct.
Okay, so you're gonna go, you give them your 10 days, 21 day notice, whatever it may be. Okay, so on day 2, the last day, you go. And they refuse entry, then what happens?
I would do the process, whatever that, we would follow a due process, which would be referral to the city attorney and involving the building official, and the building code has prescribed the laws that we would have to pursue and follow, but we would write a new citation, cite them for the violations that we already have, and that we would just follow enforcement work authority that we already have.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here.
Sure.
I like to do that.
That anybody who's willing to put 30 people into a house is also willing to tell the city to.
You cite them, okay,
Right.
because they didn't adhere to the rules. So you cite them,
Right,
okay? But there's still, how are you gonna know if they remedied the situation if they're refusing entry? Even though you cited them, right,
right,
pursuant to the city codes,
right.
but they still refuse to let you in. Well, how do you know then that the problem is corrected?
Well, there's going to be evidence to trigger the inspect. There will be evidence that will trigger the inspection, whether it's plain view or otherwise. There will be evidence that will trigger the inspection regardless. And the law as we have it today is the most compelling issue that makes people comply are the fines that are associated with these violations. I was handling a case today that is outstanding with 95 violations on it, and the fines on that are upwards of $1 million. And so this property owner has some problems because that can become a judgment. When it gets that bad, the city attorney is completely involved, overseeing the citation processes that the building official, who's well educated in this area, carries out. It really, to some degree, it leaves our department because it gets into, again, this is the city attorney's ballgame and the building official.
If I might continue my comment.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So on page 37 of the packet, section 21.18 addresses that refusal to permit inspection. And that's what I meant by that. This is pretty strong language backed by statute. And actually in section B, it says, notwithstanding the foregoing, if the inspector has reasonable cause to believe that the residential rental dwelling unit is so hazardous, unsafe, or dangerous as to require immediate inspection, the inspector shall have the right to immediately enter and inspect the premises. So I think that that's pretty strong language. If this does become an ordinance to address that situation should it arise.
Can I ask a question in regards to the citations? So who would, just to clarify, who would get the citation? The owner or the tenants?
It would be the property owner would receive the citation.
Well, are we to the point where we can ask Mr. Needham questions, or are we just discussing this?
You can, right?
Yes, okay. Now, you said earlier, and we discussed it previously, that if a person owns multiple homes here in Greenville, okay, and before they can get their certificate or whatever it is, you just inspect one home or you inspect all the homes?
We inspect all the homes.
All homes?
Yes.
Yeah, because I remember, I don't always remember right. I mean, I'm a lot of senior moments here. But I thought we had been told previously that you would just look at one home. Am I wrong on that? No one's gonna back me up on it. Okay.
Back it up.
Okay, so let's go on the premise now that individual, Arnold Average has this humongous house. It's got 5-bedroom home, and he's a single person. And he rents out four bedrooms. Now, is he gonna have to register as a renter, or is it, no, because he's living in the house.
Yeah, not according to this ordinance, they would not have to register,
even though he's renting 4 bedrooms.
even though he's renting 4 bedrooms.
Okay.
Unless that changes if there's evidence of other violations, but we wouldn't really need to trigger the
No, I
ordinance.
mean, what I'm saying is, the person owns a home, I mean, it's really good condition, upkeep on it, nobody's, defacing the property or anything. But nevertheless, he's renting 4 bedrooms, and he might be making a couple $1,000s a month on it, but he doesn't have to register as a renter.
I don't think that home would qualify under this, but I'll revisit that. I don't think they would.
I don't think so, because the house wouldn't be, all taxes under like a rental home.
I understand that, but the point I'm making is, or I'm trying to make, is that let's go on the premise that this individual who owns this massive house, he's renting out, what did I say, 4 bedrooms? At $500 a month, that's $2,000 he's bringing in. So you would consider him a landlord? What constitutes a landlord? I mean, I could rent my garage to someone. I bet you there'd be people willing to live in my dog, but my dog probably don't want, but, would you consider me a landlord if I rent? Okay, well then, I understand that.
what you're saying, but it's not a rental house.
It doesn't constitute a rental because it's owner occupied.
Well, I understand.
And what
that.
you
I
do when
understand
you're
that.
home to acquire income, that's, you're welcome to, or, okay.
The only question I have on that is, if that person has, rents out 4 bedrooms and he's making $2,000 a month, is he being taxable on that?
That's a very good question. Probably not.
The other,
I-
you want to keep continuing?
Well, I just think that in that instance, if it becomes a nuisance and a health issue,
Exactly.
a safety issue, then that would trigger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I believe that once this is rolled out properly, there will be tweaks to it. We can always amend it. If this is a problem, Commissioner Gallardo, that you're presenting, and it's, gosh, Commissioner Gallardo talked about this. There's no reason we can't formulate an amendment to the ordinance and just change it.
Yeah, and I see that problem. I completely agree with that. I think that's part of our problem is the owner occupied 30 people in a house.
Yeah, but you agree with it, but you don't agree with the premise that's put out there.
Yeah, but it's
It's
there's
apples and oranges, right?
it's yeah, if there's a difference.
But then that kind of, I'm not gonna let go of this. That kind of leads into what Bob just said. If he's making $2,000 a month and he's reporting it to the IRS, doesn't that make him a landlord?
I think with that, we're like going away from why we're doing this. Like the whole income, whatever they report, it's,
Yeah, that's an IRS
yeah,
issue.
that, I think we're going away, yeah.
Okay, so I still out twice. Okay.
Okay, I got a question. Now, say, they go out to inspect the house and they're refused and you cite them. Okay, in 21 days, they're gonna come back and they're gonna refuse it again. And we know that that house is inhabitable because of how many people are living in it and what the property looks like from outside. Now, can they red tag that house eventually?
Yeah. Yeah, you can. Yeah, there's threats to health and safety. The city, of course, has the authority to
Because I
red tag.
think the only thing is if you're gonna if you're a landlord and you refuse entry to that house, there's a problem. There's a problem in that house. Now, does that include the inspection? Does that include the outside of the property too? You know, like weeds growing 3 feet high and stuff like that?
I would, this is only my interpretation. We'll see when it plays out, but the intent is if the weeds are a hazard, a fire hazard, yes. If it's rather runs a little bit low, you don't want to get involved in that at all. We're really trying to look at health and safety issues that we're looking for landlords who are abusing the privilege of being a landlord and profiteering and exploiting people who are entitled to live in a dwelling that is not a danger to them. And that's where the force of the ordinance is focused and should be directed. Remember, we have significant authority as it is to cite homes, to correct clearly inviolate properties, nuisance properties. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight, as I think we all unfortunately have to admit. But and that process is engaged by my department and the city attorney's office when it's necessary.
I don't see how this ordinance is gonna work. Even though they go in and inspect the house and the house seems to be okay, but you've got 30 people living in that house. That's overcrowding. I mean, my house is a little bigger than 1,500 square feet, and you know, it could, cause problems, especially when they have babies and stuff in that house. And nothing's getting done, because I agree with Ms. Batista. The houses around our neighborhood nothing's getting done. Nothing's getting done. And these guys are partying, they're urinating outside. Who knows what else they do outside? And so it's just, and with the parking situations, I keep complaining and I'm not getting any answers from the police department or nothing, because we got cars parked on the curb where it's violating the handicap, where you can go out. It's right over here all the time. There's somebody every day that's violating that handicap situation, and you report it, nothing gets done. So I don't know. I in my own opinion, I don't see how this ordinance going to work, but that's my opinion.
Commissioner Eduardo, do you have anything else to add?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, you can't have a cupboard without a wall. What does that mean? You got to start somewhere, right? So, I mean, this is the start. It may not work out the way we all want it, but at least we're being aggressive about it. You got to be proactive and not reactive. So, yeah, but my question now is, what are we going to recommend to the city council? Are we going with 21 days or are we going with 10?
I think we're gonna bring up the 21 in 10 days, right?
Yeah, I said, I also said 10 days.
I go with 10 days also.
I like 21 days. That's kind of what I like. So I think it's just standard. Again, we're trying to make sure they get it done right, in order make, up to par, as opposed to, in 10 days, they're not going to get it done. Then what happens? You're going to cite, you cite them. 10 days happens. What's going to happen after that? He's going to come out, they're only halfway through the project. What happens next? You're going to, fine them. I mean, I don't know. What's that next step after 10 days? Is it, if they don't get it done, what happens? You red tag it, or what? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, we would issue an administrative citation for all of the violations that we know of without an inspection.
That's where the, more time comes into play, I think, right? I mean, that'd be my opinion on it.
I must be misunderstanding this because from what I understand, they'll call you up and say, in 21 days, we're coming to inspect your house. Okay, that gives them 21 days to straighten it out, okay? Now, if they're in violation then I understand that. But also, if they call up and say, we're coming out in 10 days, 10 days is plenty of time to straighten that house out. It could be,
Depends on the violation, right? I mean.
Well, yeah, that's true. And how many people are living in it. So yeah, I understand, but I don't know, 21 days seems too much, so.
So we wanna, at the end of the day, I think that we wanna like educate the renters and even the owners, really. And I was gonna, I don't know, make a suggestion, maybe have a guide whenever they're giving notice to the residents, maybe give them a guide of, what is not permitted and stuff like that, that way. So say I don't know, and I don't know any better, and I get a 21-day notice that you guys are gonna come in my home to inspect it. I don't know what to expect. I don't know how to prepare. I want to learn. I want you to tell me what can I do to fix the problem. And so maybe like a guide whenever we're giving the 21.
No, I wrote it down. That's an excellent idea, like a fax, like frequently asked questions. What is this all about? And we just spell it all out. We spell out the evidence and what the problem is. Remember, half the stock is what we're talking about. Upwards of half of the housing stock are rentals, and this will create more of a presence in the community as far as what we're trying to accomplish, and how successful we are at it. Is going to be a challenge, but it's more of a presence. I think that when you go after the most egregious cases, word gets around. And as we slowly make progress against what the word slumlord comes to mind. It's not a word that I want to use, but I've seen enough of these properties to justify the landlords that are exploiting people, and that's what we don't want. And it's by addressing the nuisance properties that are creating, as Ms. Batista so well, it's creating nuisance for the neighborhood. Those properties stand out, in my opinion. And they will be subject to this ordinance. And it's been my experience that when we take action against properties like that, the ownership is normally quite contrite. They realize that it's an uphill battle to fight the lawyers, to fight the city, and they're normally I had no idea. The renter did this and I just didn't know. And they tend to cooperate. That's been the experience that just I've had, but I'm sure that we're going to see all kinds of things happen with this. And of course, we'll be reporting this back to the council as we roll out the program, back to the planning commission. May
May I ask the city attorney a question?
May you ask her?
The city attorney a question?
Sure.
So just following up on Commissioner Gallardo's concern about owner occupied folks who are renting rooms out, versus the legal definition of a landlord. Is there something that defines somebody who is doing that as a landlord or not?
Well, I think, is this on? Okay, you can define the owner or the relationship however you'd like in the ordinance. I don't think there's any reason you couldn't include a landlord who just rents a couple of rooms in the ordinance. I think like Paul explained though, there's still a lot of mechanisms for the city to correct or cite or attempt to correct nuisance properties or issues, health and safety issues. And this program is really a registry program. So and an inspection program. So this ordinance is really just a way for the city to more easily see the problems, where there's already mechanisms to enforce against the problems. So whether you need to include that type of landlord, I think is up to you. In my mind, and this is just my personal opinion, it seems that those would be the least likely to be nuisances because the person who owns the property is there watching. So it seems like they would want to, keep their property in good condition and they can see that whether or not it is. But that's up to you. I don't think there's any reason why you couldn't include that as an owner and subject to inspection.
What about the case where it's owner occupied, but it really isn't? That the owner actually doesn't live there and is using that.
Yeah, and what I'll say just kind of from a high level is ordinances can't possibly capture every situation. And so a lot of times, you draft it in a way that you hope will encompass all of the problems, but I don't think you can necessarily. So I've heard a lot of what if this, what if that, but I don't think we can necessarily anticipate every potential situation that could potentially be covered by the ordinance. So, I mean, they could lie in all sorts of ways, So the ordinance is never going to protect against someone lying about whether or not they're an owner or they rent it or whatever it may be. There are ways for the city to identify rental properties. It's not like fail proof, but there are ways.
I think just those, we all live here, right? And so we know that there are those houses with 34, it is a safety issue. And I would hate to see somebody be able to find a loophole and say, well, I live there, so I'm not a problem, but it actually is.
Yeah, and as you guys were discussing that issue, I was looking at the way the ordinance is drafted, and I think it could be interpreted, if you read the definition of I think it's the definition of landlord or tent or rental property, I forget which. I think it could be interpreted to include just a room for rent, the way it's drafted, so.
Maybe include that in our recommendation for the city council.
Well, I have to agree with Mr. Mugen that a lot of renters within our community are being exploited. But that being said, they're afraid to speak up because they want to have a roof over their head, even if it's living in a garage with 15 other people. They'd be reluctant to say anything.
Well,
I mean, there could be other factors involved, like maybe the landlord could be saying, hey, you know what? If you go and complain about it, I'm going to report you to INS or wherever, so rather than take that chance, we'll put up with conditions in the house.
Well, I went to the housing element workshop at the Memorial Hall when it was all in the beginning, and there were several people that were really upset, and they were speaking their mind. They were being charged for rental applications when there was no rental available. So there is a lot of people being taken advantage of. Hopefully we can help them.
Mr. Meegan, you said that we're getting advice from City of Santa Cruz, or they're kind of or mirroring their registry here. What kind of citations do you know that they have that they deal with?
I have not consulted with them at that level.
Got it.
I'm sorry,
Can you?
but
Yeah.
I intend to.
Yeah, I think that would be, I think that would go with whatever timeline, because we don't have, because we really don't know, right? We don't know what we know. We don't know what kind of citation or violations they might have, then, is it going to take a day? Is it going to take 10 or 20 or, 60 days to do it? So.
You're right about, you're correct.
And I wonder like what their challenges are and what has worked for them or what they can do different, and maybe we can get those ideas from them.
That's our intent. Once if the city council approves this, we're gonna have to implement it and report to you and the council as far as what we're doing out there.
So I had another question. On the inspections. Who will be conducting the inspections?
And it'll be under the authority of the building official or his designee, so most likely building inspectors.
Should that be on here? Or
Perhaps. I would imagine. Yeah, we can put that in here. It would be under the building official's principal authority, but we'll be
Just to make it
delegating it
clear.
also.
and then the owner does not have to be present at the time of the inspection, correct?
No, that's not in the ordinance, but that is requirement.
And then if there is an inspection and it fails and you guys have to come back, how many days? I don't think I saw that on here. How many days do they have?
I think the answer is it will depend. And if they fail by failing, I think what you're referring to is an inspection is going to produce citations, administrative citations, and we would write those up, and it would be up to the building official or his designee to determine what kind of time frame is involved. For example, different time frames would apply to different safety matters. I mean,
So there's no re-inspection after a fail, right?
yes, there is a
Okay, that's,
reinspection.
I'm sorry, that was my question. So what's the time frame?
It would depend on the infraction.
Oh, okay.
For example, we would do an administrative citation, and let's say it's a plumbing leak, perhaps, or an electrical, maybe it's faulty wiring. The building official would say, that's an imminent threat to everybody's safety. It needs to be addressed in, 10 days. And we just write that into the administrative citation. Re-roof, maybe it's just flooding rain or something. You might give them more time. There's factors involved, like the availability of contractors to fix a particular problem. Again, our decision making on this is premised upon compliance. What we really want our landlords to take a good look at their operation and fix it. The good old days of hiding what's going on when they're just purely exploiting people for as much money as they can, because some are forced to live in a garage for whatever reason isn't acceptable in the city. And that's the principles behind this. A rental property, you own your house and you have maybe a couple of rentals, and you rent it to a couple of families, and everything is normal. By that, I don't mean that there's 30 people in the houses and everything. That property owner, that landlord, is never going to see us. It's going to be unaffected by this ordinance.
So everybody's done. I know we're here to recommend approval. right?
Yes, ma'am.
So I would like to recommend approval of the ordinance, noting the mixed planning commission opinions regarding the notice timing of 10 versus 21 days. And also a review of the landlord definition to include owner occupied rental dwellings. But again, thank you. I know this is a lot of work. And drafting an ordinance is It's good working on that. This is being addressed. I hope it works.
Thanks. I hope so.
Anyone else?
That owner occupied deal. So I know in the beginning you mentioned, Mr. Megan, that this would not apply to ADUs, owner occupied ADUs. If we would add the owner occupied, then that would flip that, correct? To now ADUs needing.
Yeah, I think so. I think that does change it.
So that's, I think, in my opinion, if it's owner occupied, I own an ADU and I take pride of ownership at home. So I don't feel that I need to bother my tenant knowing that I do inspections on my own. I don't need to bother them to, hey, the city's going to come out and do an inspection for you. That's because obviously I own my home. You take pride of ownership right as you own it. And I wouldn't feel that would be ideal or correct. I don't know.
The chair, Commissioner Mendoza, there's also the self-certification program. It sounds like you'd be a prime candidate to just self-certify. Give us, I've inspected everything and there's nothing to see here. And we would review that and go, yeah, there's nothing to see here.
Anything else? Vice Chair, please. All right. Well, thank you for that, Mr. Megan.
Welcome.
I'm gonna go ahead and move on to G, other business, update from the city staff on major projects. Thank you.
Not doing anything.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate your work, Commissioners. This next item is in response from a request by Commissioner Mendoza and concurrence by the rest of the Planning Commission that you receive an update. At the time, I thought we just gave you an update, just add a few weeks. And I realized in the record it was February. So it was enjoyable putting this together because I was frankly a little bit shocked by what is in here. We broke it down into 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chapters in the table of contents. We added completed projects. So there's the projects that really aren't on our radar screen anymore. We broke it down into just reading from the table of contents, advanced planning, housing, commercial projects, cannabis, economic development, completed projects, like I mentioned, in the nuisance properties. And I would probably, unless the planning commission has, real concerns or questions about anything, I, of course, distributed this, and extra copies are available on the rear end table for review. But this is provided primarily for you, and it's a public document, obviously, so members of the public can just contact our office and will be provided for them. In the advanced planning area, some of the main things that are important that we're working on is the housing element. We received our second pass back recently. It's still 7 pages, and it's quite an exercise. I think you've seen the correspondence from HCD, so you know what we're working with there. The annexation of the Arroyo Seco Academy, as well as the community center parcel, is high on our list. We're approaching getting that right to take to the LAFCO board. So those two parcels finally can be annexed into the city. The rental registration ordinance, I don't think we have to revisit that. The California Statewide Communities Development Authority is an entity that we've researched and looks like it will be a good tool to be associated with to provide some assistance to large-scale housing developers to help finance the infrastructure improvements that are necessary for major subdivisions. In housing, you can't travel the city and not notice the Greenfield Commons project is working away. The Avila Farm Worker Housing Development is on its last building of, I believe there's 7 in total, and that's been going on for about 3 or 4 years now. One Place Apartments, phase 2 and 3 are on the finishing. They're on the finishing end of their project next to the Shrink Group's cannabis operation. Woodbridge hasn't started yet. The remaining projects have applied for building permits. In the commercial project section, the Walnut Avenue Travel Center is struggling to get open. They were trying to get open before the 4th of July weekend, but I don't think they're going to make it. They're waiting on PG&E at the moment. But the building looks very nice, and I expect that the community should be pretty pleased once Jamba Juice and the other restaurants begin to serve the community. The cannabis operators, we have 5, and right now they are paying their taxes. They're coming up on the end of the fiscal year, beginning of the fiscal year, and so there's not a lot to report among the cannabis licensees. On page 26 in this report is an excerpt of the receipts from the last quarter that we've received in our tax revenues. We're on track as we forecast during the budget season to receive $2.25 million a year in cannabis taxes. We're on track there. Not everybody pays on time, but for the most part, we're doing pretty well in that area. On 689, the cannabis facility, the planning commission may recall your approval of a 25,000 square foot building. It hasn't been constructed yet. We're kind of waiting on that. We'll report where that's coming or how that's coming along. In economic development, Capital Rivers, we don't see Capital Rivers graded very too often. It's been a tremendous amount of help. They're working currently on producing a commercial inventory of all of our properties, as well as our annexed acreage, mainly Gaines and the Robashadi acreage. The Shide map has been reinstated, and so both sides of Highway 101 have yet to be developed, really. And there's a lot of priority that the city develop the annexed lands that we've already been annexed, because LAFCO doesn't like to annex to our city more acreage that has not been developed already from our previous annexations. So that's my very brief, truncated review. item number 2 on page 5 talks about where we are on our housing production for cycle 6. We already have reportable units there. And of course, I don't think I mentioned, perhaps I did, the Bobishadi tentative map of varying development in build out of the remaining specific plan properties. The specific plan was 65 acres in total. And of course, you are all familiar with what's there now. South of what you see on in the plan, are now completed lots almost. The developer and their engineer and the city engineer now are working on a final map that'll finalize the subdivision of that acreage into 10 parcels. There's already 3 businesses that are either in escrow now. Well, actually, to the best of my knowledge, they are in escrow. 3 businesses in that area. So we think that's gonna just continue developing nicely.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. I'm gonna go ahead and open public comment.
Hi, it's me again. Jessica Batista. The amount of work that has been going on in the city of Greenfield, thank you, is not lost on me. It's so appreciative what is coming to Greenfield, and I thank everyone and the staff for bringing this. But it's 9 housing projects and gas stations and fast food. We need to be able to purchase necessities here. It is 50 minutes to Paso Robles, and with the amount of traffic on the 101, it takes you an hour to get to Target or Walmart. So planning commissioners telling me that I work in Monterey, so having stores here doesn't matter, or it's never going to happen. It has to happen. We have to fight for a Target, a Walmart. You know, I get it that big box stores are leaving and everybody's doing Amazon, but it's because we have to. But I believe that you go to, look at our Rite Aid, there's nothing on the shelves. Rite Aid is going bankrupt for whatever reason, I don't know. But you go to CVS and there's nothing on the shelves because the amount of people that South County has, the stores can't accommodate us. There's no necessities, toilet paper, deodorant, shampoos, they're very limited supplies. I live here, I own a business here, I work here, and we need to be able to have something outside of gas stations or, you know, coffee shops. I mean, it's to the point where I think that it's alarming that we don't even fight for it. I mean, the 101 is a parking lot. You can't, that tells you something. Everyone is purchasing a home down here. There has to be more industry. But like I said, thank you so much. I do see that there's a lot of work, but I just wanted to highlight that if you look at that, there is no stores or sit-down restaurants. So I think it's time. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments on Zoom, emails? Okay, I'll go ahead and close public comment. Planning Commission discussion and comments. Commissioner Marcia?
Thank you, Chair. So, yeah, I am probably that planning commissioner that works in Monterey and made that comment. But that's just because of my commute. It's convenient for me to go there, but I completely 100% agree that we are lacking in retail, that where we can buy appliances, and things of that nature. So I share that concern. And I think that our new, relationship with Capital Rivers they must be aware of this because, I mean, with the fact that we're growing leaps and bounds, as you can see by these housing projects, we need another grocery store. And I would hope that, you know, I don't know how the public can interact with Capital Rivers to voice that, but maybe we could, you know, maybe they should get some input from the resident at some point of what we're really lacking here. And it is a lot. And, you know, it is hard to go drive an hour round trip just to buy a vacuum cleaner, you know? It's crazy, but, I also appreciate the compliment of, you know, we are growing a lot. We have approved a lot. I really love this format that you gave us because this is going to answer a lot of questions that we get a lot of times. So I appreciate that. I would, if you guys haven't already, I would invite you to drive by the Oak Terrace development because I think we were all, with the exception of Commissioner Mendoza, we're all part of that process. And to see the building still up, it's just, you know, it's one thing to see a little tiny print of it and then to actually see it. It looks really nice and I'm very happy to see that. Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Yes, I have a comment on the, excuse me, the north side of El Camino. I don't know where these junk equipment came in, but it's parked there by the Shell station. I don't know what's gonna go in there. And I was just questioning about that truck stop that's gonna go in on the opposite side.
I'm sure,
It's just, the reason why I'm bringing this up is just, it's an eyesore coming into Greenfield.
yeah, those, I directed that site be red tagged today.
Yeah, because it's,
They are-
unfortunately, it's just a eyesore coming into Greenfield.
Yeah,
Now, we need to do something on that side to make it look more presentable for the city.
Making reference to the intersection of Cypress and ECR, is that what you're talking about? Yeah, it does look bad. Okay, so I have a question here, on the four questions. The Marriott Town Hotel over there. Is this a third different place that's supposed to go in there? Haven't they proposed, two other people proposed a motel there and then they kind of paid it and then this one came in?
what you just described is correct. This is the second project on that site. That's correct. The first folks, went bankrupt and they were running up. And, but, the other client, they left town and were,
And as far as Mrs. Batista's comments, I'm completely agree with her. That, yeah, we do need something bigger than we actually. Like. Or like she said, we have to drive a pass out over there, so we have to look this, I mean, that's, you know. It is what it is, I mean, but what can we do to entice big box stores to come? We have to give away our kids to tell them it's like, you know, come on down there and we can take on my kid with it. No, I'm just being facetious, of course, but, yeah, what do we do to entice them to come here? I mean, you see Soledad, well, Soledad was supposed to have a Ross, weren't they? And then that kind of disappeared. That's what I was told anyway. Where they brought in that new coffee place there and they're building another place right there where Ross is supposed to be. You know, that's the Alice said. The new one? Yeah, the one that's adjacent to the theater. Yeah, I believe that's a Dallas facility, you know. But yeah, we do need to get something to get better story. Yeah. Get a better selection for the community. You know, so. That's not always easy to do. Is it? Factors that play into it. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I got to say.
Uh, If I may respond.
Yes,
A little bit. Uh, you know, Council members knows recruiting. We had 22 days this week, last week, we had, what was the name of the staffers that were here? Begins with a Z. The Supervisor Lopez in the county, in the Monterey County Business Council, Cosmot is the name. Cosmot were well distinguished firm, and they too are trying to get a large target. Everybody, there are people that are working on that. I mean, the cities of Solican, the cities of King City, the city of Gonzales, they're all expressing the same sentiment that we have here about the need to buy simple things, whether it's a printer cartridge or just common staples. Everybody who needs to know about the problem are well informed about the problem and are working on it. Nobody can just, we can't force or maybe to start building on a parcel in Greenfield or anywhere else. We're working on them through ICSC, and we're engaged with two professional commercial brokerage firms that are trying to bring to the city. Now, a key part of that is housing development. They want to see that there's disposable income to be spent in their facility, and so housing strengthens our case. It's obviously not a all-encompassing thing, but they have thresholds that they don't look at you. And I remember because it wasn't that long ago where we in Greenfield, wanted just a coffee shop, right? Just a coffee shop would come to Greenfield. We had instability in our politics. We had problems in the police department, and we had problems getting fast food and gas stations to come to Greenfield. So, that is $143 million to the city's value in the last 5 years since 2019. It's just a start. It's not and because everybody agrees that we really, really need, but we're now getting to a point where we can say to these people, whoever decides to build is going to do well. Yeah, please come with you. It's, those who made the decision to be here. They're all doing well. They're making money. And that's all they care about. They don't care about our needs. They want to know that they can make money. So we are working on it. We're working very hard.
Preferable to have a Walmart instead of a Target. Because I mean, the demographic of the city. Target is having issues. They're shutting stores down and stuff too, so.
Exactly. That's
There's also, I think there's a micro, plant, they have micro stores.
yes.
We could have that, both of them, if they were micro.
Commissioner Mendoza?
There's 3 subdivisions, Scheid, Miramonte, and Woodridge. I know that Scheid and Miramonte, they don't have developers in there yet, right? is there any incentive from the city? Is there any concessions the city willing to do for these developers to come in? I think that kind of ties to, you know, a big box store, from my understanding, and I don't know if Capital Rivers can share or sharing information on that. These big stores don't come unless the population is right. So that's a big deal. They want to see housing, right? So in order for that to happen, we need more housing. That's kind of how they're tied together, right? So how can we get these other subdivisions, which are big subdivisions? We're talking about 180 and 150, something like that.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking 300 and whatever amount, 330 homes. You know, how do we get that? And then what is here? What is Woodridge? 40 some homes. So is there anything the city's doing on that to recruit developers, to work with the landowners to get, you know, I don't know, again, like going back to incentives and concessions for them.
Yeah, there's movement on the Scheid property. I can't talk publicly about it yet, but I can talk to you offline privately about it. That's the map that recently was reinstated. It's expired. And the Miramonte map is, yes, the city is looking at installing some water sewer infrastructure issues that are lacking at the site. And then in issue 3, previous developers looked at the site and said, no, thank you. And so we looked at that, and yes, I'm not sure what the status is of that particular effort right now. But the thought was that if we installed the water and sewer infrastructure to the site, the developer would not have to. I think that at this time, there's consensus among a lot of people that the cost of money today is an issue too. The interest rates that they have to pay now on the construction loans is an issue. But we are absolutely open-minded to providing incentives to the developers, and really, if we get a serious developer, that's will definitely be responsive to requests to help them build.
One of the biggest things is not having to build any inclusionary homes. So that is a huge, you know, upside for a developer.
And we're there.
Yeah, right.
We're there.
That should be something that they should be attracted to. Just, you know, I don't know if we can do anything else to, you know, get them to bite on those two.
Just on this issue, I don't want to get too deep into this, but impact fees, of course, is an issue. You know, every developer in the world wants relief from impact fees. The problem is, unless they're going to build the roads or fix the wastewater sewer treatment plant, the city just legitimately needs impact fees to fix the impacts of the developments. So, so far we have not used impact fees as an inducement. But perhaps we could, but I don't think the city council, because see, we're always fighting the infrastructure issues, the wastewater sewer treatment plant, the roads, constantly.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to add, thank you for the report, for the update. I know we like to see, you know, updates every so often. And so we see it on social media. And so can we put those on like Facebook, on our Facebook page, so our residents can see our updates? I know we can find them online on the city website, but a lot of people are on Facebook and that's their best way to keep with.
Actually, if you do that, I think we would post them on the city's website. We wanted to wait until you had it, since
Yeah.
you asked for it first, so we
And yeah, and I'm glad to hear that the right people know our needs. And hopefully People think we want a target and we can get a target in 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. It's not that easy. And so, they have to want to come to Greenfield. And so it's not that Greenfield doesn't want to Target or Walmart or whatever. It's just, it's not that easy. So I appreciate this update. I hope, our Greenfield residents take the time to go over this. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Anyone else want to add anything? Okay, I'll go ahead and close. I'll move on to H, comments from planning commission and staff and.
I just wanted before this section of the agenda to remind the planning commission that this section is really an opportunity for the planning commissioners to make brief comments about items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the planning commission. And those things are generally anything in the zoning code or anything in the subdivision code, in the municipal code. So it's not really, and if you wanted to see an information item at a future meeting, this would be a time to ask for that. So that's how we have this item that we just heard tonight. But it's not a time to ask staff other questions. You are, however, always allowed to ask the staff questions outside of a public meeting individually. So I just wanted to take that opportunity to remind the planning commission of that before you went on for your comments.
So this isn't the time to say, go support the nonprofits across the street that are selling fireworks?
That would be, well, I mean, that's not really within your jurisdiction, but I think that would be acceptable. And you just said it.
Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Garcia, do you have? Oh, okay. Anyone else? No? Okay, well, thank you. I'll go ahead and close adjourned meeting at 7:41. Thank you.